My whole experience of dive talks was the fact that for decades I've been going to diving conferences, and dive talks offered this unique perspective. A very short period of time for the speakers to conduct their presentation, but also the largest thing is audience participation. I don't think people have the opportunity to be able to be in that environment where they get the chance to talk to the people and to ask their own questions about the topics being spoken about. My first dive talks last year, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. There was such a good vibe around the whole show. People were just interacting with each other. It was amazing. I really enjoyed it. The biggest thing about these conferences is that as a dive professional, I get to connect with all my friends from around the world. And this social gathering is just another place for us to reconnect. And the biggest thing is just to do cool stuff with cool people. And it's a great opportunity to do that. Probably the biggest highlight for me over the weekend was the extreme diversity of talks. There were talks there that I had never even contemplated thinking about before. And that really drew me to start thinking more about those areas and those topics. I think diving talks contributes to the diving industry tremendously because, we've got such a huge area. We've got the medical fraternity, we've got the military, we've got the scientific, we've got the commercial, we've got the recreational, we've got tech diving and the photographic areas. Those are all brought in to one hub. And I think that's pretty unique. I think the connection between people is the biggest thing, and having that connection between people that you've met online, that you've never met before in person, and them coming to you and talking to you about the topics that they want to discuss, and I think that it's been a great hot pot of conversation over the weekend, and I love it. The biggest thing that drew me to underwater photography is the fact that being in the diving industry, I needed an out. I needed an outlet which was for me. And I found photography and getting into photography was my way of doing the things that I wanted to do while still being a diving professional. Well, I guess any part of a photographer is to create a frame. And the great thing about diving all these beautiful parts of the world is to be able to document those. And a lot of the time, diving places for the first and only time, it's opportunistic photography, which just means you're taking images of areas that you think are pleasant to the eye and grabbing those frames while you're swimming around the wreck. But what I've also had the opportunity of doing is dive sites around the world frequently. And what that does is that gives me the opportunity to dive these sites many, many times. And what that does, it helps me gain a lot of experience in all these different angles of which we can get the best frame. And that's quite an advantage when you're a photographer. One of the biggest and most memorable moments taking images underwater is whether I'm taking images of wrecks or big aquatic creatures, all the rest of it. It's just being there and sealing that moment in time, because not sounding too doomy and gloomy, but everything that we do in life is a memory. All right, we experience something, and then a moment later, it's a memory. So being able to capture that moment as best that I can helps me relive that memory over and over and over again. And I think that's pretty cool. For example, capturing images of a stern gun on a destroyer, a shipwreck. The next time I go back to it, that stern gun has collapsed and fallen away. Now, a lot of people might say, "Oh, that's really bad," but it's the natural evolution of a shipwreck. It's constantly degrading and breaking up. That I had the opportunity to take an image before that happened, and then to take an image after the result, it just shows the transition of the wreck and the wreck's life. Same thing goes for capturing images of massive schools of hammerheads in the Galapagos Islands. Just being there, there's no substitute for being there and experiencing it for the first time yourself. But when you looked at the images and you could get to actually appreciate the expanse of how many of those massive creatures that were in that frame, and we're talking hundreds of animals. So that helps me appreciate even more after the event. So yeah, that's my experience. There are a lot of challenges, especially if you want to be taking long time exposure images in deep inside shipwrecks. Obviously, because of the fact that it's trying to get all this additional extra equipment in, extendable tripods, lights with clamps, all these extra bits of equipment become entanglement hazards. So by the time I get inside of a wreck, if I am not skilled enough to get inside the area that I want to get inside, now I've got to try and set the image up. Now, if my diving skills aren't good enough and I kick the visibility up, of course that's going to create safety hazards, but also it's going to destroy the image. So these are the largest considerations that I have to take into account. And there's wrecks that have taken me maybe 8 or 9 years to take the image that I want to take, just because of the challenging effects of where that shot is in proportion to where the wreck is. And the deeper inside that you go, you got all those safety hazards on top of you also. Probably the biggest advice that I would give to any aspiring photographer is, don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about what other people say. You've got to take images for yourself. I used to remember in my early years of photography, I would open magazines up and I'd be looking at these beautiful images and I'd say, I'm never going to take images as good as that. So what is the point? The big point that I've learned is the fact that as soon as you start taking pictures for yourself, don't ask people, what do you think that I should take a picture of? Look on the dive, have a look and see what you want to take a picture of, and set the image up the way you want it. And then at the end of the day, you don't have to please anybody else except for yourself. And the cool thing about it is that you can go back to that site over and over again, and you can perfect your skills. And that's the biggest advice I've got. Just take it easy, take one dive at a time, and have fun doing it. That's what it's all about.
And